السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. ربي إني مسني الضر وأنت أرحم الراحمين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. لا إله إلا أنت سبحانك إني كنت من الظالمين. رب اجعلني مقيم الصلاة ومن ذريتي ربنا وتقبل دعاء. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. وصل اللهم على محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم. ربنا اغفر لنا وارحمنا وأنت خير الراحمين. آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. آمين.
We're reading from the Reasonings, page 11, the fourth point on the second way. The fourth is that if an unlettered person expresses his view on the matters discussed among specialists or scholars, agreeing with them on the matters on which they agree, and explaining and establishing the truth on the matters on which they disagree, without having been contradicted later. This shows his superiority and his being taught by an all-knowledgeable one. Continue reading.
Okay. Inshallah, we can read.
We can read. Based on these facts, we say, it is as if despite being unlettered, the Prophet, upon him be peace and blessings, had penetrated all the depths of the past with his ever-active, unrestricted spirit, had learned the states and the secrets of the previous prophets as if he had lived together with them all, and explained before the whole world all the basic principles on which all these states and secrets were based. He made these principles the premises or primary foundations of his mission, clarifying them to their utmost points. In addition, the Prophet confirmed the truths to be found in the scriptures that were sent to previous messengers, and corrected the faults and falsehoods which had found a way into them over time. This shows his absolute truthfulness and prophethood. All the proofs for the prophethood of the previous prophets, upon them all be peace, are also proofs for the truthfulness and prophethood of Muhammad, upon him be peace and blessings. Their miracles can be regarded as his miracles also. If you give some consideration to it, you will understand this.
So, anything attracted your attention here?
As I reflect on it, I think the point of the fourth point is, to me, starts with the fact that belief is not a matter of information, and its belief is also not restricted to or affected by information existing in this universe. And so a person who is apparently unlettered can identify universal truths amongst subject matter experts. Like, he's able to identify something that is fundamentally universally true without having to do, years and years of research on it, because that truth exists, regardless of studying things to its depth. Um, an example I was thinking of was, like, for example, uh, a chemist can study, is studying the field to know that elements are contained, atoms, molecules, particles, whatsoever. And the chemist also, through his study, observes that these particles do not have an ability to create themselves. After years of study, he can come and conclude this. Whereas someone who is reflecting on their existence and asking those questions can also find that same guidance in their thoughts and conclude that yes, no matter how small something is, no matter how big something is, it does not have the ability to create itself, and it points to a cause that is responsible for creating it and everything that it is a part of. So, I mean, what I take from it is belief not being a matter of information, and that everything contains a universal, eternal truth that is not a subject of information gathered from the universe.
Okay, and anyone else that
I have a follow-up question to her last statement. You said not based on belief, not based on the information gathered from the universe. What do you mean by that?
Like, for example, I don't need to study empirically an atom in a lab, to conclude that it does not have the ability to create itself.
How else would you go about it, I guess?
You can just reflect on your own existence and your own being and say that nothing that I am and can believe in or can think of, or like my own existence, is, I mean, it can be a totally, like, I guess, like a personal, not a personal, but like an individual process of just reflecting on your own existence, and you can conclude the same.
at the same time the universe is out there? Everybody can study the universe at a different level, as you gave the example of chemistry. A person may be expert in the subject of chemistry, if someone may not be, but still everybody in his or her own level think about what is going on in the universe, apart from reflecting, as you emphasize, on his own existence. It is another alternative. And we cannot ignore it. It is out there and the people do it. Whether we encourage them to reflect on the creation or not, even the most illiterate person gets an onion or a tomato and cuts it and is admiring and admires the way it is arranged purposefully. That no one can say that it is accidentally happened to be like this. Millions of different kinds of creatures. So I think that the general statement, as Qasim said, we don't need to study the universe. It must be modified as we don't have to be an expert.
Right.
In studying the universe, in studying a subject better. in the universe. Everybody can benefit from the universe according to their speciality. But in this fourth, let's remember what are we studying? The prophethood of a particular person who's called Muhammad. Now, what is mentioned here in the fourth? What is mentioned here? What is the main subject? Why this particular section, the section fourth? What this particular section is emphasizing on? I mean, we're not talking about whether we have to take lesson from the creation or not, but particular subject.
What I gather is that whatever is truth is clear. The truth is clear.
What is the truth?
That's what I got from the first paragraph.
Well, the truth about what?
The reality of one's existence.
But did you read the text? We read the text and see from the very beginning when it says here, and explaining the third line from the beginning.
And explaining
Yeah.
and establishing the truth on the matters on which they disagree.
And who are they disagreeing? Truth and truth on the matters on which they disagree or agree. What is the subject here? I think we should pay closer attention to the text, what the text is telling us, so that we will benefit from the text, because text is giving a certain reason, step by step.
Yes.
Now, in this stage, what they disagree, who are they? What are they agreeing or what are they disagreeing? As far as the content of this fourth section is concerned.
The content that is being presented
What
by
are
the
they?
messenger.
Sorry?
The content that is being presented by the messenger.
Messenger. Yeah.
Muhammad.
What are they? Yeah. Yeah. Well, they, who are they?
The scholars and the specialist people who are using the reasoning.
I guess people who claim to know more than the average person, I guess. Like people who claim that they have more knowledge than someone else.
About anything, but especially here, the previous prophets, messages of the previous prophets, especially. Now, they means those people who have specialities in the messages of the previous prophets. Now, the person Muhammad, now we don't know whether his position now, came up with an idea, although he's unlettered, but all the people's understanding of the word, understanding of the previous messages, he's an unlettered, and he says, this is right, this is wrong. But he's unlettered, he's not specialist. Now, we can use your example, and a subject related to chemistry. An unlettered man comes to the specialists in chemistry and says, what you have done here or what you concluded about this is right, but this part is wrong. And he's unlettered. And he keeps this idea from the beginning to the end and establishes this, that was important, as his principles Yeah, I'm reading from here. He made these same principles the premises and primary foundations of his mission. And he keeps the consistency from the beginning to the end for how many years? He never changes. He never changes. Oh, I thought this way, but it wasn't that way. Now I understand it should be in another way. No, it says, this is true. What you say is wrong. And he keeps it for 23 years. And at the end, everybody agrees what he said. Because the truth, yes, it makes sense, human beings. So when we study the message of the Quran, the message he brings, we see the consistency as far as human nature is concerned, as far as the reality outside in the creation is concerned, how they need to be interpreted. Right? And we say, oh, that's correct, it is consistent. And the author says, the people confirmed, the last line on page 11, the people confirmed the truth is to be found in the scriptures that were sent to previous messengers and corrected the faults and falsehoods which had found a way into them over time, corrects them. And when we study, we understand, oh, this correction is correct. Understand? We understand this. This shows his absolute truthfulness and prophethood. Now, the subject is, why do we say that this man is a prophet? What do we mean when we say the prophet? It means he's not an expert on any subject, and he is not speaking on his own. He's speaking what he was taught. And he says, I'm taught by the creator of the universe, time and space. It means the previous prophets claimed the same. They came with the same idea, but in the course of time, their message has been twisted, corrupted a little bit. So, some truth in it. Some of them are modified according to various considerations of the people who follow the message. But understandable, we change it, don't we? Yeah. So people keep interpreting the Constitution according to their political tendencies. Although the Constitution is there, but interpretation is changed. And accordingly, everybody starts understanding the Constitution in a way that is presented later on. Most probably, according to the interest of the people who follow. Mostly interest of the country or something, whatever their central thought is. So not only about the messages of the previous prophets, but also what is known by the people as far as the creation, as far as the existence, and interpreting the existence is concerned, how he interprets it. So, and of course, it is very important, he never changes in the course of time. He doesn't change his mind. The most important is, he is not the expert on any subject. The second most important is, he never changes his mind. He says, as he claims, this is what God told me, and this is the truth. Think about it. And the previous prophets came up with the same idea, but he corrects them because of the corruption throughout the history. He says, in fact, the message must be like this, but unfortunately, the people corrupted it, he says. And later on, when we see the whole teachings of this prophet, we understand that it has a consistency in its entirety. How can he know? There are experts on other narrations of on the narrations of other religions, and he has no idea, and even he wasn't aware of it. Which kind of people they are, because we should remember where he started the mission. There was no Jews, there was no Christians, so it means no Zoroastrians, so that they will, that the community or the society should know what's going on in their field. It was a just pagan, totally ignorant people. Mecca. They didn't have any tradition, they didn't have any civilization, no history. They only knew one thing. The ancestor of the Arab nation is Abraham. And his heritage is, legacy is Kaaba. He made the Kaaba. What does it signify? They don't know. That is the time and space where Muhammad started his mission, and his mission didn't change the fundamentals. That is important. Yes, he started from the fundamentals and then tried to help people or teach people how to establish these fundamentals in their practical life and then in their social life. But same fundamentals followed, never changed. And the consistency, we now have the whole message that he taught. We have it, and we see no contradiction, inconsistency in the message. He's an illiterate man, which is not interesting. It's very...
I have two questions. I guess the first one is earlier when you were talking about how people's interpretations, I guess this is in relation to the line where it says, and he corrected the faults and falsehoods which had found a way into them over time, into the scriptures over time. When you say that people changed, the scripture, I'm not sure if that's exactly what you were implying, but as a result of these faults and falsehoods making its way into the scriptures over time, we're saying that things have changed. Do we view reduction the same thing as change? Meaning someone who reduces the meaning or the essence of the meaning in something and isn't able to completely understand it, or for that matter, practice it, or make sense of it. Is that the same thing as change? Or is change to actually manipulate what exists or what is there in the essence and convert it to something else? Because in my opinion, I don't think reduction should be viewed as change. And my understanding so far is that it's not that change made its way into the scriptures, but due to the interpretation of the previous scriptures, it resulted in reduction, or it resulted in a reduced understanding of it. And I wouldn't classify that as much as change. I would just classify that more along the lines of, I guess, wasn't being understood to its complete potential.
Interpretations.
Yeah.
We do, or the Muslims also do the same thing to the Quran. They interpret it according to their life expectations. Or let's say in the Muslim community, somebody defends a certain idea, refers to where this is from as a Muslim. It doesn't say it is my own idea. It says that's what the message, the Quran says. Another person may be really radically contradicting what this verse says. He also comes up with an idea and refers to the same source. The main interpretations causes the corruption in the text. Now, thanks to the text, original text is preserved. The people can always go back to the original text. But the previous messages, they say this is divine. For example, it is more obvious in the claim of the Christian theology. They don't have any substantial source which will claim that this is what Jesus taught people. It is just narrations and people's narrations. But what they did later on, although these are compilations or the writings of certain people, Matthew, Mark, Luke, whatever, but they are divinely inspired to give a divine legitimacy to it. But they cannot really claim that that's what exactly the message of Jesus was. They cannot claim that. Judaism tries to claim it, but of course it has been regenerated with new interpretations and rabbinic interpretations, and the text is mixed up with what Moses taught, and the language also is not really preserved. No one can say that they have a source like Quran claims to be. Quran says, here I am, in the very beginning, this is the teachings of God sent to the Prophet Muhammad, and the Prophet Muhammad conveyed to us his own interpretations are completely separate. His own practices are completely separate sources. But what he said, this is from God, I don't know. That's what God said. This text, or the claims of this text have been protected historically, not changed. But you may think that some people say it is a little bit misleading if someone is not expert on the subject. Somebody pronounces a word different from the other one. That is original language, original text is the same, but punctuations and the way you pronounce it by certain scholar may differ, may vary from the way another scholar read it or pronounced it, because of the nature of the record of the first recordings preserved by the people around Muhammad. And what is significant in the tradition of Islam, the sayings and actions of the Prophet kept completely separate from what he claimed to be from God. What God said conveyed this message. It is very important. No one can say historically, now and then, in the past, this is Muhammad's own word, but mixed with what he said it is from God. No one can claim it because it was very well observed and protected. So the corruption is in the interpretation, but it is inevitable. The same thing. For example, why do you think laws keep changing, although constitution doesn't change very often? Constitution also change, but constitution is doesn't claim to be constitution itself, doesn't claim to be divinely inspired. That's why people may change it, but the Quran, no one can change it because it claims to be divinely inspired. It's not human production. Let's say constitution changes in every 50 years, some modifications, but laws keep changing. Why do you think the laws keep changing, but the constitution really doesn't change alongside with the change of the law? Why?
Laws are more practical.
Practical and
Constitution is more fundamental.
no. Come to the language we are using here.
Principles.
What we said. What is the reason for the corruption of the text? Interpretation, right? People in the course of time keep interpreting the constitution according to the laws change. Now, what happened to the previous texts? As the laws changed, constitution also changed. So constitution is revised accordingly, not very often, of course, as often as the laws, but the Jews claim that original Moses' message has been preserved, but they have to, but they cannot really historically prove it. This is not our point. Our point is an illiterate person comes out and says, the origin of the message of Moses, origin of the message of Zebur, whatever, David's Psalms, origin of the message of Jesus is this. Because the origin belongs to the Creator, because they are messengers of God. They claim to be the messengers of God. And the same God taught me and corrected what is corrupted because of the interpretations. When that is how it is, and when we study, everybody should study it and pay attention to whether it makes sense or not for me, what the modifications or corrections made in the Quran on the message of this person claiming that this is from God. So, how the criterion that which kind of criterion we can have whether Muhammad's message is really correct? We refer to this, but it's very important. How do we know that Quran's message is really correct? Apart from the historical narration side of it. Now, historical narration side of it, historically established. Okay, the texts are here, and there are certain historical texts in the museums also belonging to the very, very early ages. And the people memorize it every century, every generation. And the memorization continues. They memorize the same text, and they recite the same text. Apart from this, I don't know whether I'm making my case clear. We are not talking about the legitimacy of the text now. Content of the text. How can we make sure that the content of the text, okay, let's say this is what exactly Muhammad said, okay? It's that he received from God. Okay. How do we know that this text is from God? Yeah, we mentioned this on various occasions.
I mean, if the text that claims to be the speech of God has to match with what I experience in the world and has to be a confirmation of my experiences and provide guidance to me in terms of my existential questions.
And using your observation of the creation of the world and also using your
My
own human
qualities.
capacity. Yeah. Now, although what I'm going to say is not our subject today. Today is you study the Quran, whether you agree or not. It's up to you. But even if you don't agree about the content of the message, still no one can claim that this content of the message, the message itself is not what Muhammad claimed to have received from God. No one can do that. Historically, it is established. Yeah, Muhammad said it is from God, but I studied it. It doesn't make sense to me. You can do that. But in order to be able to evaluate the content of the message, we have to use our own observations, our own human capacities, and be satisfied or not. That is another subject. But the text we read here let's see, where was it? I see. Before that one, the text here says the content also doesn't contradict human capacity. Well, historically, the text, the authenticity of the text is not challenged. Historically, no one can say that this is not what Muhammad taught his companions, but later on they made up. There is no evidence for it. But as far as the content is concerned, in this text, there have been many corrections about the previous knowledge, previous religious traditions, corrections. And afterwards, what we receive, first, very important, he never changes. He's sure. When he says something, it is from God, that's it, established. He doesn't change his mind, although he's not an expert on the subject. But afterwards, when we study it, we understand that all the subjects he corrected, modified in the message he brought. What was it? Made these corrections as his established truths, established truths and principles. Where was it? He made these same principles, corrected principles, the premises and primary foundations of his mission. That is important. It means, the text says, if you study For example, the variations. There is a variation between a story taught in the Torah and the same story taught in the Quran in a different way. Not completely different, but in a different way. There are differences. And these differences, especially these differences, made the principles, the main principles and the premises, it means foundations, primary foundations of the message of the Prophet Muhammad. And he says, you can challenge it. You say, oh, it doesn't make sense to me. Which one makes sense to you? The previous one, which is corrected by the Quran, or what the Quran corrects the previous messages. Which one makes sense to you? You have to judge according to your capacity. Well, if someone says, I don't know, I don't understand, that's different. But if you want, you can study, you can become an expert and see whether the content of the message makes sense to you or not. Again, it is up to you. Seems to be a bit arbitrary because people feel that there must be an absolute truth out there and we must refer to it. But in this world, there is no absolute truth. Although this verse, this word, including human capacity, human potentialities, point to the necessary existence of the absolute truth. I think this is, every week we have to repeat this. The universe and the human nature, human potentiality, point to the necessary existence of the absolute truth, but this absolute truth is not in the universe. But universe refers to it. That is why human beings are created in such a way that they search for this absolute truth, not within the universe, but studying the universe and how the universe and his human capacities point to the necessary existence of absolute truth and see whether his understanding is matching, fitting, as he understands, this is the absolute truth, I agree with it. One thing the people cannot bear, and of course, those people who don't think, no. What the Quran says is absolute truth. How do you know? We have to take into consideration what? This is the evidence. The Quran is an evidence. Speech is an evidence. Evidence to absolute truth. But we are studying the absolute truth, the universe and ourselves, and trying to understand that the content of the Quran, according to my capacity, according to my understanding, fits to the absolute truth. It means, it is consistent. I agree with it, because we cannot imitate the text. We need to confirm it by examining, investigating the evidence in the universe. It looks like we can never be sure. Yeah? Yeah, this universe, you can never be sure. That's why we have to, what we have to do?
Keep renewing our confirmation.
Keep
Questioning it.
investigating. Keep investigating. Keep using your, whatever the material, the evidence you have to keep it. People always think that it is better if I have a ready absolute truth here, and if I go and get it from the market, from the stores to buy and get it. I bought it. It is mine now. There is no such thing. We have to keep investigating. Now, we have to admit that we are lazy people. We don't want to keep always investigating, questioning, investigating, questioning. What we want to do, come on. Either an expert should tell me, this is the absolute truth. Okay, this person is an expert. So he said, this is the absolute truth, and I will just imitate him. But he may be saying the absolute truth, but it's up to him. It is his conclusion. It's not your conclusion. What you have to do, you have to listen to the experts and yourself try to make sense of it. Because of laziness, human laziness, we don't want to assume the responsibility on our shoulders. We want to refer it to someone else. So, since they say the Prophet Muhammad was a prophet, they say, whatever he says, I accept it. Did it make sense to you? Generally, yes. Generally, yes. But the same attitude caused the previous nations, same attitude means imitating the scholars or experts without themselves, trying to investigate as much as they can and benefit from the scholars and learn and try to improve their understanding in a better and better and better way. That's why when you say, I believe in God, there must be a creator, otherwise I cannot explain the universe. That's a very general statement said maybe 95, 98% of the whole world population. Yeah, there must be a God. Okay. Did it make sense to you? There must be a God? Yes. That's what they are saying. There must be God. Okay. And then afterwards, they don't want to investigate it. What they want to do is, since there is God, so religion must be correct. So I have to accept whatever religion says. What does it say? Don't know. Laziness. We should investigate further and further and further how I should understand God. Which kind of relationship I should have with God. I have to keep investigating as much as I can. There is no justification for laziness. There should be no justification for laziness. We are experts on every subject, especially our worldly interests. When it comes to religion, we just give the responsibility to others. It is so common. If you speak to a Christian missionary or a person who says, I am an expert on Christianity, Christian theology, he says, what do they say? Oh, look, can you claim that you are perfect? Yes or no? No. Say it?
No.
No. Okay. That's correct. Always there's defect. Okay. What do we have to do? Trust the perfect one, and he purified himself and your imperfection by sacrificing. Just believe in him. He will forgive you, but he will save you. He is the Savior. He sacrificed himself for your sins. People say, why not? Yeah, why not? She sacrificed my. I say this, for example, very recently. We were talking with friends. If someone says, do you have to pay tax? Yeah. But somebody has paid tax for you. Don't bother. What do you say?
I won't pay.
Sorry?
Great, I won't pay.
Yeah. Said, okay, bye-bye. But let me reverse the example. I like the example. You have to pay zakat. And somebody came and told you, somebody paid a lot of zakat, more than his responsibility. You don't have to pay. What do you say? Not the tax, but zakat. What do you say?
That's that person's kind of, it's on them that they did more, but I still haven't done my part.
You have done your part, because
Haven't.
when it comes, you haven't, yeah. When it comes to an action which is related to your personal responsibility with God, you cannot, how do you say, put it on others' shoulder. You understand this? It's a very clear example. When it comes to your social relationship, for example, there is an hungry man, and I am taking a food in my hand, carrying to the hungry man's house. Somebody said, don't bother. I gave a lot of food for him. What do? You go back. Okay, he's not hungry anymore. You know. But when it comes to the personal responsibility, as far as your relationship with your Creator is concerned, you cannot put the responsibility on somebody else's shoulder. Belief is personal. You cannot put it on the shoulder of Jesus. You have to take care of. For example, let's say I killed a man. Okay? I am a murderer. That's my responsibility, that I am a murderer. I have to pay for it. If someone says, don't worry. Somebody have been imprisoned, and then in the prison they have been punished, and in compensation of death penalty, he killed himself or he was killed. So you are free. What do you say? But I'm a murderer. Still, I'm a murderer. So this is not only blaming the Christian theology and trying to show the inconsistency in it, but that demonstrates that we human beings are lazy, and we want to give our responsibility on other people's shoulders, and they will carry it. That's what we do. That's why we are looking for an excuse. Now, I don't know, the experts say that I have to believe in the hereafter. Yes, you can listen to experts. If they say you have to believe in the hereafter, and it is true, then an expert came and said that, look, I thought about it. It is really correct. I am convinced about it. What would you say? Okay, you are hungry, and I am hungry. We have the same questions. Are we going to be resurrected? Now, I said, don't worry. I ate. What would you say? Excuse me, I am in need of food. I have to eat myself. Your eating is nothing to do with me. But I can show you how to find the food, how to cook the food. But that's different, but you have to eat it at the end. When it comes to religious matters, what we do, we imitate others and put the responsibility on others, but I'm not doing anything. But I can benefit from them, how to find the answer to my questions, which is the difference. How, for example, I am hungry. Somebody said, look, I cooked such and such material or things, vegetables, in this way it was delicious and satisfied me. I can say, teach me how to do it. But at the end, I have to prepare it and I have to eat myself. Do you see the difference? Belief matters. It's personal. It's a personal need. Somebody else investigating and coming to the satisfactory conclusion, reaching the satisfactory conclusion for himself, does not satisfy you. But you can benefit from their teaching in order to satisfy yourself. That's what we do. If you want to become an engineer, what you have to do, you have to go to an engineering school, but yourself, you need to learn it. Yourself to become an engineer. Somebody else's knowing the subject doesn't make you an engineer. Unfortunately, it is so simple to me. The case is so simple. What we want to do, we claim, especially Muslims claim, Quran is from God. Okay. What the Quran says is absolutely true. It's God's word. Okay. I don't have to investigate it. I don't have to study. That's why we don't study the Quran. Why? I believe that the Quran is the word of God and it is full of truth. Okay, how do you believe? It must be so. It is God's word. How do you know? Everybody says. Does it work? We have to study. That is the main disease, not only among Muslims or people. Main disease. Imitating the experts rather than benefiting from them and learning and coming to the conclusion for yourself. Now, we can do the same thing to the fundamental principles that the Prophet Muhammad introduced in the message he claimed to have received from God. We have to say, okay, that's what it is said. I have to go and see these fundamental principles matches my expectations, my human capacity. I have to investigate it. Otherwise, just historically being convinced because of many narrations that the Quran has not been corrupted. Okay, let's say I am convinced that the Quran has not been corrupted because there is no claim otherwise. All right, the Quran is not corrupted. Quran, as it claims to be, Muhammad taught people this is from God, it is preserved, as it claimed to be, as he said. People keep saying that Islam is true because Quran has not been corrupted. Okay. Is it enough? Quran has not been corrupted. So, okay. So, fundamental principles and premises in the Quran must be studied and digested by every person. Since you are convinced that it is preserved as it was received by the Prophet, as he says, I received it from God, and I am conveying to you. Okay, I understand that, but does it help me to believe that it is the word of God? That was the problem. Does it help me that this is the word of God? But yes, this text has not been corrupted. It is preserved as it was claimed by the Prophet himself, but it doesn't mean that the content of the message is acceptable, confirmable, and I am satisfied about it. Get it? The second part, if you speak to generally the people who say Islam is true, because the Quran has not been corrupted. 1400 years past, it is exactly the same. Okay. Okay. I mean, there is no evidence contradicting this conclusion. Okay. But are you satisfied that this is from God? Now that's why we said everybody has to try to make sense of the content of the Quran and confirm it. Somebody else's confirmation doesn't help us. Somebody else's studying only may be used as a material, so I can do the same thing. Somebody else cooked a certain food, and ate it and satisfied. His being satisfied doesn't make me satisfied. But he can teach me how to cook. But at the end, I have to eat myself. That's belief. That's your confirmation. At the end, you have to eat yourself. At the end, you have to be satisfied. Somebody else says, this food is very nourishing. Okay. Okay. He ate and get the nourishment. Did you get the nourishment without eating? What is the point? Saying that this food is very nourishing. This person said, what the text we read today, the fourth, says, Muhammad corrected the message, available message, in the hands of other traditions, in the hands of the people following other traditions, and made it primary, and made these principles the premises or primary foundations of his mission. His mission. So I have to study whether this mission, his mission, makes sense to me or not. I have to study. I have to think about it. I have to listen to people. I have to listen to people who study, who learned how to cook before me. I don't have to investigate how to cook potatoes. So, and invented, because if someone has learned through the experience, I can benefit from it, but at the end, I have to eat myself to be satisfied. I have to come to the conclusion. That's why personal responsibility is inevitable. We cannot assign somebody saying that he suffered for me and I am free from suffering. because somebody has suffered from. When it comes to Christianity, Muslims are laughing. Yeah, there's impossible. It doesn't make sense. But when it comes to our own situation, we do the same thing almost, generally speaking. Generally speaking. Inshallah, we'll try our best to study, to concentrate, to benefit from others, but at the same time, we conclude ourselves. We need to conclude ourselves. No way to pass on the responsibility to somebody else. Inshallah, there is a midway. I'm going to find out the truth myself. Okay. Go and make another search yourself without going to school and start from the very scratch. Don't benefit from the previous researches and to become a computer engineer. Well, who does this? I'm not going to listen to the teachers. I'm not going to listen to the others who have already investigated and accumulated the information and made it ready for me. I'm not going to study this, and he has to start to learn mathematics and algebra and algorithm, whatever, I don't know. Investigated and then become an engineer. That life is not enough for us. Before he becomes an engineer, he dies, sure. Now, that is one extreme. People confuse this. Are we going to invent everything from the scratch? No, you don't have to. But the other extreme is, yeah, there are many people who study engineer and know how to use the computer or how to really benefit from the computer or how to write the program, etc. Okay, I don't have to. That's another. Everybody eats. I don't have to eat. It's another extreme. Well, we have to find a very satisfactory way to live. We have to go to school, benefit from the previous investigations and inventions. The people found out the evidence about the truthfulness of something. I have to benefit from them, but I myself have to become an engineer. Their being engineer doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't benefit me. It doesn't make me an engineer. In the world, everybody doesn't have to be an engineer, but in the worldly life. But as far as the purpose in our creation is concerned, everybody is responsible to know his Lord. God says in the Quran, which makes sense, really, it's a good sense. I created every individual soul and gave the ability to him to know who his Lord is. Every individual soul. You and I potentially are able to know who my Lord is. I have to use this potentiality. If I don't, somebody else may use his potentiality. It's good for him, not for me. Everybody, personally, individually, is responsible. Some people say, relativity, they say, relativity makes the people uncomfortable. I cannot be sure of myself. So take the Quran as the ultimate criterion and just do what it says. But Quran says believe in God. And can you say believe in God? Okay, I believe in God. But the Quran presents evidence asks you to investigate. Use your abilities that God gave to you. And the conclusion must be, the Quran says, you will understand, I promise, that really you have a Lord. The Quran says, I promise this, but you have to come to this conclusion. I'm giving you the direction and providing you with the evidence. Come and do it. But we have to do it. Yeah? If we don't, what happens? My spirit is not aware of his Lord because I haven't educated it. And saying that every spirit is created in such a way that they have a Lord. Yeah? But I haven't educated it. My spirit is not aware of his Lord. Just saying that, people say that I have a Lord. Yeah, okay. So we have to investigate. That's the conclusion. The last paragraph, let's finish this one, and then any question, any concern, we can talk about it. Last paragraph says something else. All the proofs of the prophethood of the previous prophets are also proofs for the truthfulness and prophethood of Muhammad, because he doesn't claim that he is a totally new innovation. He says, I am on the line of the same mission as the previous prophets did. Although their message is somehow distorted because of various interpretations, I am correcting them, but I am not on a different mission. So if someone, it doesn't mean that they are totally, their narrations are totally wrong. No. Whatever you study Torah and what you found them truth and makes sense to you, it means this conclusion also confirms Muhammad's messengership. You know why? Because he said, yes, I agree with him. I confirm the message as well, so I am on the same line with this person. And if someone, historically, the narration comes from certain religious traditions that Moses had this kind of miracles, etc. Jesus had miracles, etc. Whatever. If you are satisfied, if someone is satisfied with the narration of the miracles of the previous prophets, you can use it as an evidence to support the Prophet Muhammad's message or claim to be the prophet, because he says the same God gave them miracles and the same God gave me the miracles. So they support each other. Again, this doesn't mean that we should not study the content of the text, which is very misunderstood to me. We shouldn't, it doesn't mean that, okay, the previous miracles of the previous prophets also can be used as a proof for Muhammad to be the messenger of God, because he demonstrated this, not exactly the same miracle, but any miraculous action saying that this is not from me. This is from the Creator. Yeah, if the miracles that Moses presented to people is from God, And Muhammad says, the miracles I am presenting to you is also from God. It means you can combine them. But again, lust. It doesn't say that, it doesn't mean, or it shouldn't mean that I should not study the content of his message. Just get ready and feel the need to study the content of the message and benefit from it. Educate yourself accordingly. Educate yourself accordingly. We should not be lazy. Inshallah. At least we have to accept. And even if we are lazy, we have to accept that I'm lazy, I'm not doing it. Rather than, no, I don't have to do it. Experts studied the Quran and they say, it is absolutely true, I'm sure. I studied, don't worry about it. Okay, I don't have to worry about it. That is what billions of people are doing in Christendom. Leave it to your sins, leave it to Jesus. Of course, they don't say that you shouldn't, well, you have to be fair. They don't say that you can do anything you want because Jesus has sacrificed himself for you. Don't worry about it. No, they don't say that. They don't never mean this. What they say, you have a defect inherited from Adam. You cannot get rid of this defect because no one is sinless. You cannot get rid of this, but if you believe in Jesus, your defect is forgiven. That's what they say. Your defect is forgiven. But in fact, although Christianity doesn't accept the institution of the messengership, so they don't, for historical reason, they can't really interpret it in this way because according to them, Jesus is not a prophet. But in fact, what makes sense to us if we really think about it, yes, I have a defect for myself because I'm not, although my potentiality is perfect, but my practical life doesn't match my potentiality. Always I'm behind. I have not employed, and no one has employed all his potentialities to become abilities, capacities, practical capacities. That is correct. So I have always shortcomings. No problem. How can I get rid of the shortcomings? What is the way to get rid of the shortcomings? Following the teachings, studying the teachings of the prophets, then I can benefit from their teachings and help myself to overcome my shortcomings as much as I study. If I don't study, I don't. But if, for example, the Christianity accepts that Jesus was a prophet, by following his teachings, you can partially, even partially, overcome your shortcomings. That would be correct. Yes, that's what we are doing. That's what we should do. If you don't know how to manage with the computer sciences, okay, you have a shortcoming now. Potentially, you can become an engineer. But if you don't study benefit from the people who are expert on the subject, your potentiality never turns into capacity. What you have to do, you have to benefit from them. And you will see whether it is working or not, and you become, and it is likely to become an engineer according to the effort you spent on it. Understand? It's very simple. So, because of Christianity insisting not on the side of the prophethood, messengership of Jesus, they cannot solve the problem. They have to follow a path of thinking, saying that believe in him, you will be saved. You have to think whether it makes sense or not. But believe in him as the messenger of God, follow his teaching, you will learn something and you will save yourself. That is the way. As much as you follow, you study, you understand, you are satisfied about the teachings of Jesus, about the teachings of Moses or the prophets, and Muhammad as well. But as far as you study, if you don't study, believing in him doesn't help you. I believe that this is the best professor in engineering. I believe. He demonstrated something excellent. Okay, your belief. Does your belief help you to become an engineer? But what you can do, since you are convinced that he is a very good engineer, take lesson from him and learn. Okay, it's interesting. Anyone else? No. Okay.
Earlier you said that, if I heard you, or if I remember correctly, you said the speech of God or Quran does not contradict our capacity.
Should not, as it claims to be. Not
Right.
is not, we don't know.
Right.
Should not, as it claims to be.
Right. So
if the claim is correct, shouldn't.
now, if you take the example of someone, let's say, who I'm just using this as an example, someone who doesn't consider Jesus to be a prophet, or any other example, where the person's current capacity is contradicting the speech of the Creator, then I'm not sure if I'm able to make sense of.
So the capacity or potentiality, which one?
I think, in my opinion, I think it should not contradict the potentiality.
Yes.
But I think it does contradict a person's capacity because of how
the word is wrong. Doesn't contradict the capacity is wrong. This expression is wrong. But by definition should not contradict my potentiality, but I may not be able, I might not have been able to develop this potentiality and turn it into capacity, and I may be behind. That is different. But contradiction is inevitable because potentialities are endless, and we never ever turn the potentiality into capacity in its fullest sense.
Right.
But for example, who can say that I have been studying again engineering, some engineering, and I am the best man in engineering? Can he say that I have really turned all my potentiality into capacity? No, we know that. And this person knows much better than anybody else. He will say, oh, I have only used 5% at the most of my potentiality. The rest is that. So contradiction is not, it's a wrong word. But we can say, I am not fully able to turn my potentiality into ability. So what should I do? I have to keep investigating further and further and further So, and the more I learn, for example, you want to become an engineer. You go to school. The first year, what you learn something, and you start saying, yeah, I'm becoming a little bit aware of what is going on in this field. You study second year, third year, fourth year, you become more and more aware. It means your potentiality is coming in, turning into capacity, but no one's capacity is 100%, 100% perfect. That's why we have to follow the teachings of the prophets or anyone who claims to hold the truth or present the truth to us and benefit from it. But benefit from it. This is the point we should never neglect. Benefit from it. So, but if someone says I am a best engineer, okay, I will teach you engineering. If I start taking courses, whatever it says, sometimes makes sense, sometimes doesn't make sense. It means you find the teaching contradicting your what? Sorry? Potential, not capacity. I think we are not making a right vocabulary there. But doesn't make sense. I cannot accept. It doesn't work. He says like this, and I try to understand it. It doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't work as far as my potentiality tells me. It goes against my potentiality. So what you don't follow this man because he's teaching you something contradicting your potentiality. That is why we have to use the criteria by ourselves, whether the teachings of the prophets or the teachings of the texts, scriptures, the Quran, the Torah, whatever, right or wrong. How can I know that Quran is right, but Torah's teaching is wrong? How can I know that? There's only one way. I have to study whether I can find them confirmable by my potentiality or not. If you read the Quran and it doesn't make sense to you, can you say that I believe Quran is Allah's word? Although this some parts don't make sense to me. But ignorance, not being able to study, learn is different. For example, you are in the school taking the engineering course, but instead of, you are the first year student, instead of going to first year class, by mistake you went to the fourth year class. You listened to the professor. What you do? What are you talking? I don't know. I don't understand. I cannot say it is against my potentiality. I don't understand what they're talking about. That is why human beings are created in a way that we make progress gradually, step by step. So, but each step must make sense to me so that I can go on to this following next step. The next step makes sense to me, follow the other next step. That is how we make progress. Progress means, now you understand that the progress is how much you have transferred your potentiality into capacity. That's progress. When we make progress in our humanity, we don't invent new things. That's already there. That is why Quran says what? I created you perfect. And your spirit is absolutely perfect. It is from me directly. No defect. Now, Christianity says you have defect in your existence. Right? Original sin. Islam says you are perfect. You understand the difference? Now, you have to think now, which one is correct? In my potentiality, I am perfect, or in my potentiality, I have some factory, something wrong in my factory setting. If this machine, let's say, is made by God, do you think, by definition, we have to investigate, do you think this machine may have some factory defects? By definition, God means absolute perfect being. What he does is absolutely perfect. So Quran suggests us, see yourself as it is created by the absolute being, and see whether you can explain your existence otherwise, in another way. No. I am not made by a perfect being. I am an accidental being. How can I trust my existence? You will have no whatsoever criterion to make progress for yourself, because you will learn something about what? Not about. You will learn something, and how are you going to be sure that it's right or wrong? You don't know. You have developed accidentally in this way. Well, you cannot trust yourself. This materialist understanding that we developed ourselves is really, really absolutely stupid, full of contradiction. I am accidentally developed, as I'm saying that, and they say to us that we have to look for satisfaction. Satisfying what? Something accidentally developed in this way or another way. What's the point in satisfying? Because you don't know that is true or not. Because your source of existence is what? Accident. Why should I bother about anything? It is accident. I don't know from what aspect you look at materialist ideology. Never ever makes any sense at all. At all. It's full of contradiction from every aspect. They say you have to enjoy yourself. What am I enjoying myself? What am I going to do to enjoy myself? I will say, oh, it is good for me, but this disability or potentiality in me, which sees it as good or enjoyable or not, is an accident. It's an accident. I cannot have any truth. I am not saying that I am satisfying myself. It's an accident. Accidentally fit there. How can you be satisfied as a human being? Human beings potentially look for, I would say, consistency in his existence first. And then you can try to develop the perfection in your creation and make it practically applicable in your personal practical life. Because it is worth it. Because you know that you are made by a one who is the creator of the universe, and he is the perfect one. By studying your existence, by studying your human capacities, by studying the universe, you understand that nothing accidental in the universe. perfectly arranged. If my creation is also perfectly arranged. So Quran says, trust yourself. Because you have no reason not to trust yourself. You are a perfect being. All your human capacities are perfect. When you work on them, for example, in the materialist philosophy says, when we use our potentialities and turn them into capacity, what we found? Machine, technology, right? And they work. They work within the content of the universe. It means whatever I found, this is true as a result of my investigation, works. It means it is really true, it is compatible with the reality of the universe. It means when I learn something, if I realize that it works in the universe, it means my existence and the existence of this subject that I am studying is deliberately arranged by a person, by a one who established everything in its existence on a perfect base. It means the creator must be an absolute being. The more you investigate, the more you become aware, you become able to make better machines, and they work. When the machine works, what does it prove to you? Your potentiality. Potentially, you say, it makes sense. Let me apply it. When you apply it, it works. What does it mean? Your potentiality is directing you to the truth, which is demonstrable in the creation. And you experience it. Here the machine works. Materialist understanding doesn't say in your creation you are perfect. Now, you happen to be like this. You fit the universe accidentally. Can you trust yourself? Yeah. If you cannot trust yourself, how can you use your potentiality to make the machine that will work? You cannot trust yourself. It is full of contradiction. From whatever aspect I look at this ideology, it never makes any sense. Full of contradiction from every aspect. Now, it is important that our potentiality, when it is turned into or developed into ability, as soon as we develop our potentiality into ability, what we find in the world, this ability matches the rest of the universe. It means me and the universe have been given existence by the same source. Deliberately, consciously, not accidentally. I find them interesting, but inshallah, we understand. And we have to take care of ourselves, okay?
I guess in my observations and investigations of indications I see in the universe, like you were saying earlier, I can at least confirm the existence of an absolute truth, but because it's not within the universe, I may not be able to access it.
Now, it may confirm the existence of.
I may be able to confirm the existence of an absolute truth.
Now let's modify the language. I am able to confirm the necessity of the existence of absolute truth.
Right.
Not. But if you don't use the word necessity there, how do you know? But when I look at the universe, it must be. The language is very important. There must be an absolute source of existence who gives existence to this universe. Why? I'm looking at that everywhere points to the necessity of the existence of the absolute truth. Okay.
Right. So I can confirm the necessity of the existence of an absolute truth.
No, don't be how do you say? Oh, the language is it is necessary. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense. Otherwise, it doesn't make sense.
Yeah. Though I may not be able to access it, but
not I may not be able to access
I can't.
it. No, by definition.
Right.
By definition, I cannot physically communicate with the absolute truth because by definition, it must be not the nature of the created beings. So from the very beginning, you don't try. Why? By definition, the source of existence is not of the nature of the existence of this world anyways. So you just, when you conclude it, stop. Not I may not be able. No, by definition, it is impossible to. You have to be aware. If you are not aware that physically, in terms of this universe, you may be, if you think, you may be in contact with the absolute truth. It means you didn't understand and define absolute truth correctly. That is why people say, people in general, what we hear from the people, don't imagine God. Yeah, because it is beyond your capacity. No, by definition, it is unimaginable. Not because it is beyond your capacity, not because your capacity is limited. Oh, do you remember this language I used to emphasize a lot? Not because we are limited so that we cannot really physically communicate, or in terms of this universe communicate with God. By definition, we should not, we cannot. By definition. If I give a chance that I may develop and get in touch or communicate with the Creator in terms of this universe, it means my definition of absolute being is wrong. So it is nothing to do with limitedness. It is everything to do with the nature of existence. I am a created being. He is the source of my existence. And you will be very comfortable. Most of the people say, yeah, it seems to be, but I don't know. How can I be sure? Because he doesn't know that. When this person says God, as soon as you use the language God, what you conclude, what you are saying, I am concluding about something which is not of the nature of the universe. By definition, however I develop myself, impossible to become an creator. I am a created being. As I developed as a created being, I develop. I cannot develop into a creator. As a created being, I make the progress. You get it?
Yes, that makes sense. So with that, when I'm assessing, if I assess the corrections made by the prophet in the variations that I observe to be correct as well, then that
you can confirm.
Right. Then that itself also acts as further confirmation of the truth behind his claims.
Yeah.
Right.
That is the only way.
Right. That's the only way. But even that assessment, I can only do through the criterion of my own qualities of what makes sense to me, of to the extent that I use my potentiality.
As much as you use your potential.
Right, as much as I use my
Yeah.
potentiality.
You cannot go beyond it.
Mm-hmm.
Can you go beyond what you have developed developed your potentiality into ability? No. Can you learn something what you have not really developed from potentiality into ability? Can you do something? Can you claim something? Can you understand something? Impossible. So we have to know that my potentiality is really coming from the absolute being. I cannot get to the end, but I have to make progress step by step and see whether my progress is confirmable by my progress is confirmable by my
The results of it, with potentiality.
potentiality. By my potentiality. As long as you see that your conclusions are confirmable by your potentiality, that's it. That's it. When you study the Quran, you have to study the Quran and take it to your potentiality. But if they say, how do you know that you are not corrupt? Yeah, that is the problem. Your potentiality cannot be corrupt if you are created by an absolute being. If you are the product of accident, your potentiality has to be correct. But accidental happened to be, could have been in another way. You could have been developed in the frog or nothing, or nothing. Maybe doesn't exist. It has no base. Only you think about yourself and say that I can be a product of an absolute being. Otherwise, nothing can give me existence. That's a good start. Nothing can give you existence. Do you think the food you are eating gives you your existence, bodily existence, human qualities, existence of human qualities? If you say maybe, that's another subject. But think about it, if the molecules or the particles of the food can make you, do they have any quality? It's very simple. So you are made by someone who is not within the universe. That's very simple. The simplest thing in the world is to believe in the necessity of the Creator. It's very easy. What needs now? Try to understand this Creator by using your potentiality given to you in order to use it, to be used to get to know Him. So be consistent. I am made perfectly. Now, this perfect creation is given to me in order to get to know my Creator, become aware of it, because always we say human potentiality has been given consciousness. You are aware that your potentiality is perfect. That's how you are made, how we are made. If someone says, no, I don't know, it is just a false claim, actually. Everybody can say anything. Okay. Thank you. It is fast. It was full, but because it is using. Thank you for reminding me. Okay. Can you just read the indications? I think we have covered it today, so that we can start from the third way. Whenever Allah gives you, watch out for the Watch out for the emails. I don't know what will happen to me. No idea. Really, really. Okay.
An indication. O brothers and sisters, sometimes an oath substitutes for the truth. So listen. I swear by the one who revealed to the Prophet the narratives in the Quran, the basic aspects of the histories of the previous prophets and their peoples, and took his spirit into the depths of the past and to the peaks of the future, making secrets apparent to him, that the Prophet's most careful and penetrating view is free from being deceived and confused, and his mission is absolutely true, exalted above deceiving and confusing people.
Now, the oath, the Prophet always spoke, or the Prophet Muhammad always spoke with an oath. It means claim that I'm absolutely sure. Now, that is why he never changed what he claimed to have received from God. He never changed it because it is supported by the oath, and he kept the oath. And at the end, what we found, a consistent document in our hand. So, oath confirms his surety about the source of the revelation he received. Because when you take an oath by God. So refer the text to God. What we have to do, we have to study the text. If we see that it makes sense to us as far as our potentiality, human potentiality is concerned, it makes sense to us. We understand that this person was sure about the reality that he received the message from God. If we are satisfied with the content, if you say that this content is correct. So this is the practical side of it. The Prophet doesn't say that, now, it seems to me, it makes sense to me that if we believed in angels, it would be better for us. No, he never spoke in this way. He was so sure. But what are we going to make out of this attitude of the Prophet that he is sure? If the content makes sense to me, I can comfortably confirm that this man was claiming that from the very beginning, it is from the all-knowing Creator, and it seems to be correct according to my understanding, according to my investigation. It seems to be correct. And this person said this is from God for sure. It must be because I confirmed the content. It must be true. Do you understand the difference? If you don't confirm the content, I don't know. May God help us. But the more you confirm the content, you see that this man is speaking by oath, taking oath. It means saying that God witnesses that it is from me. It is for sure. It is not for, I said, God witnesses that it's from him, not from me. And if we are content, if we have the confidence in the truthfulness of the content of the text, of the message, we say this man is so sure. And it just seems to be correct, as far as I understood, as far as I studied. It seems to be correct, so it seems to be correct. So his oath makes sure that this man knew that it was really from God, not from himself. But if he said, I think, if he said, You may say that, he guessed this and it was a right guess. But he didn't say, I think. He said, I swear by God, it is like this. Sure. This surely shows that he is the employed one by God. That's why he was so sure. But if only one thing, today maybe 20 times I repeat it, I must have the confidence in the content. We have to study. Okay. Watch out for the emails. Really, I don't know. Not I'm being modest and saying that we don't know what will happen to me. Sometimes you say, according to what we are seeing, inshallah, I'm going to, for example, take a car or a bus or something and go there. That's according to the laws of the creation, principles of the creation. But I have no idea now. Right? Inshallah, that's what I'm saying. If I had an idea, I would say, I think we will have the Wednesday class. But I have no idea. Before, I thought we would have the Wednesday class regularly. I thought, inshallah, we will have it. Although Allah will decide, but as far as we know, in the laws, in the principles of creation. Now, in the principles of creation, I know nothing. So let's see, inshallah, whatever Allah creates, we will follow, we will support, and we will accept it. Inshallah. We won't reject. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم. آخر دعواهم أن الحمد لله رب العالمين.